Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is a video which you need to be watched before you are going for hands-on soldering practicing. I tried to add some basics of soldering, different prototyping boards, etc. in this video. Let's get started. Before we jump into a deeper discussion on prototyping boards, let's first recall what prototype is. Prototyping means building an actual circuit to a theoretical design to verify that it works. Prototype is a term that can be used in variety of contexts. For this tutorial, we are going to use in the context of electronics. Creating a prototype is an essential step to test and evaluate your innovation ideas. Prototyping is very important in electronics laboratories. An electronic designer often builds the first prototype from breadboard or stripboard or perfboard and usually uses them to test circuits. They are generally called as prototyping boards. Prototyping boards have holes to which have affixed electronic components to build your desired circuit. These components can be attached with or without solder depending on the type of board which you are used. It is always recommended to test your circuit diagram first. There are many electronics prototyping boards available in the market. The two prototyping boards that we are going to discuss in this video are the breadboards and perfboards. First we start with breadboards. The most popular prototyping board is the breadboard. It serves as a construction base for testing if a circuit works. Just like any other prototyping board, it consists of holes where you affix your electronic components. The spacing between the clips is typically zero point 0.1 inches. Advantage of breadboard over other prototyping boards are this board doesn't need solder for attaching components. And because it does not need soldering, it is reusable, which makes it easy to use for creating temporary prototypes and popular among students. You can use it for a variety of projects varying from simple to high level digital and analog circuits. Next is how to use a breadboard. We need to start with preparing the schematic diagram and components of the circuits that you want to put on the breadboard. For prototyping purposes, you can easily place your electronic components into the holes of the breadboard. There is no need to use any specific tools or solders in this breadboard. Some breadboards have labels over them to make it is easier to use. Keep in mind that every row of 5 holes A to E and it's marked as A to E or F to J are electronically connected. There are no electric connection present between the row H of any half of the row and the holes of the other half row. For the two hole strips running in between plus and minus, an electrical connection is present throughout each hole column strip. These columns are used for providing power and ground connections. These vertical strips for power and ground connections are called as power rails. You can see on the both left and right side of this breadboard. These power rails are metal strips that are identical to the one that run horizontally. These power rails give you a lots of easy access to power labeled as plus and minus to indicate positive and negative. The power rails on either side of the breadboards are not connected. A jumper wire can be used to connect each side according to our circuit design. Jumper wires are extremely handy when you are prototyping with solderless breadboards. These are available in the market at cheap prices, but you can make it your own too by using a single standard wires. Jumper wires are simply wires that have connector pins at each ends. This allows them to be used to connect 2 points to each other without soldering. Jumper wires come in different lengths and variety of colors, but these colors doesn't actually mean anything. However, colors can be used to easily identify the connection, so it is better to make use of colored jumper wires. Next we move to perf board. A perf board is a prototyping board that is a thin sheet with holes at standard intervals across a square shaped grid with spacing of usually 0.1 inches. Square cover pads cover these holes. Inexpensive perf boards may have pads on only one side of the board, while better quality perf boards have both sides padded. When using a perf board, you make all connections using either wire wrap or miniature point-to-point wiring techniques. Other boards usually need to use the solder for attaching components. The absence of default connectivity on perf board gives the designer more freedom in positioning the components. So we have a freedom to place the components anywhere in that perf board. Next, how to use a perf board. First of all, you must have a plan for your circuit. Then make a clear schematic diagram of the circuit you are planning to place on the perf board. Have a clear and understandable connections and locations of the components before building the circuit into the perf board. Keep in mind the spacing of your perf board while designing your layout. That's very important. Afterward, you can solder the components on their places and make the required electrical connections. Avoid excess use of wires if possible. Minimal use of wires will make the circuit clearer, more presentable and understandable, and that is the professional way to do the things. So always keep that in mind. The next one is strip board. Strip board is one of the commonly used prototyping board. These boards are intended for permanently assembling on-off circuits, especially prototypes. One side has parallel copper strips on it, spaced 2.5 mm apart. There are holes bored in the strips. Also, it's 2.5 mm apart. The components are placed on the other side of the breadboard with their wires bent to pass through the holes. The wires are soldered to the copper strips, the projecting ends being cut off to make the assembly looks neater. The strips corresponded to the row of sockets on breadboards, allowing several components to be joined together. But a strip has many more than 5 holes, so numerous connections are possible. A circuit built on strip board has permanently soldered connections, but it is not difficult to remove a component and solder in one of a different value, or even to completely modify part of the circuit. A prototype circuit may be built and tested stage by stage. Next section is soldering. What is soldering? That's what I am going to explain. If you disassemble an electronic device containing a printed circuit board, you will see that the components are attached using soldering techniques. Soldering is a process of joining two or more electronic parts together by melting solder around the connection. Solder is a metal alloy, and once it is heated up, it melts. Also, when it cools, it creates a strong electrical bond between the components and the PCB. Even though soldering can create a permanent connection, it can also be reversed. That process is known as desoldering. Some other tools needed to do that. Last part of this video, I will show you how to desolder components from PCB. Soldering tools. Soldering needs some tools that they need to be handled very safely. I will outline the basic tools and materials you will need for most of your soldering projects. First one is soldering iron. We start with the soldering iron. It is a hand tool that plugs into a standard 240 watt AC outlet we seen in our houses. It heats up around 2 to 3 minutes, and we use this tool to melt solder around the electrical connections. This is one of the most important tools used in the soldering, and it can come in few variations such as pen or gun form. For beginners, it is recommended that you are using a pen style soldering iron in the 15 watt to 30 watt power rating. We use the same for doing soldering in our laboratories. High powered irons are also available. If you use a high powered iron into a normal PCB with small components, it may damage the circuit as well as the components. And if we use a low powered iron in circuits which we need high powered iron, that may not be enough to melt that solder. So suitable power soldering iron is needed for soldering. Most soldering irons have interchangeable tips that can be used for different soldering applications. The tips can be pointed type, flat type, etc. as per our requirement, which we can choose whatever we need. Be very cautious while using any type of soldering iron because it can heat up to 400 degrees Celsius, which is extremely hot. So this tool need to be handled very safely. It is better to keep it in a stand before and after soldering. Also, don't put the soldering iron on its wire strap. That may melt the wiring and cause electrical shock. So you need to be aware of all these things. Next one is soldering station. A soldering station is more advanced version of the basic standalone soldering pen. If you are going to be doing a lot of soldering, there is a great to have as they offer more flexibility and control. The main benefit of the soldering station is the ability to precisely adjust the temperature of the soldering and which is great for a range of projects. These stations can also create a safer workspace as some include advanced temperature sensors, alert settings, etc. Most of the soldering stations have hot air blower too, which is useful to solder and desolder SMD components, which we already studied when we discussed about passive and active components. The next one is brass and conventional sponge. Using a sponge will help to keep the soldering and tip clean by removing the oxidation that forms. Tips with oxidation will tend to turn black and not accept solder it did when it was new. You could use a conventional wet sponge, but this tends to shorten the lifespan of the tip due to the expansion and contraction. Also, a wet sponge will drop the temperature of the tip temporarily when wiped. A better alternative is to use brass sponge as shown in the left. Filling technique is also used to clean the iron type. Soldering iron stand. A soldering iron stand is a very basic but very useful and handy to have. This stand helps prevent the hot iron tip from coming in contact with flammable materials or causing accidental injury into your hand. Most soldering stations come with this built-in and also include a sponge or brass sponge from cleaning the tip. The next important thing is solder. Solder is a metal alloy material that is melted to create a permanent bond between the electrical parts. It comes in both lead and lead-free variants with diameters of 0.32 inch and 0.62 inch, being the most common. For electronic soldering, the most commonly used type is lead-free rosin core solder. This type of solder is usually made up of tin or copper alloy. You can also use leaded 6040 that contains 60% of tin and 40% of lead rosin cover solder. If you do use lead solder, you make sure that you have proper ventilation and that you have to wash your hands and after the use. Most of the general purpose soldering, we prefer leaded solder because its availability and its low cost. Before we are going to do soldering, we need to prepare the soldering tools. And the first one we are going to do is tinning the tip. Before you can start soldering, you need to prepare your soldering iron by tinning the tip with the solder. This process will help to improve the heat transfer from the iron to the item you are soldering. Tinning will also help you to protect the tip and reduce wear. So step by step I will explain. First step is begin by making sure the tip is attached to the iron and screwed tightly in place. And the next step is turn on your soldering iron and let it heat up. If you have a soldering station with an adjustable temperature, set it to around 400 degrees Celsius. And the next step, wipe the tip of the soldering iron on a damp wet sponge to clean it. Wait for a few seconds, let the tip heat up again before proceeding to the next step. And next, hold the soldering iron in one hand and solder on the other hand. Touch the solder to the tip of the iron and make sure the solder flows eventually around the tip. You should tin the tip of your iron before and after each soldering sessions to extend its life. Eventually, every tip will wear out and will need replacing when it becomes rough or pitted. Next, the soldering steps are first we mount the component. Begin by inserting the lids of the component into the holes of the circuit boards. Flip the board over the bench that leads outward as a 45-degree angle. That will help the component make better connection with the copper pad and prevent it from falling out while we soldering. And at the next step, turn your soldering iron on, and if it has an adjustable heat control, set it to 400 degrees Celsius. This is all we are done. At this point, touch the tip of the iron to the copper pad and the resistor lead at the same time. You need to hold the soldering iron in place for 3 to 4 seconds in order to heat the pad and the lead. This process all we done when we doing the tinning process. And the next step, apply solder to the joint. Continue holding the soldering iron on the copper pad and the lead and touch your solder to the joint. Important. Don't touch the solder directly to the tip of the iron. If you want the joint to be hot enough to melt the solder, that when it's touched, if the joint is too cold, it will form a bad connection. And the next step is remove the soldering iron and let the solder cool down naturally. Don't blow on the solder as this will cause a bad joint. Once cool, you can snip the area extra wire from the leads. A proper solder joint is smooth, shiny and looks like a volcano or a cone shape. You want just enough solder to cover the entire joint, but not too much so it becomes a ball or spills to nearby lead or joint. So just one thing to remember when you are doing the soldering, just it's better to keep a 45-degree angle between the solder and the soldering iron when you are doing the solder. That makes the perfect soldering. Next we are going to see desoldering. The good thing about using solder in the fact that it can be removed easily in a technique known as desoldering. This comes in handy if you need to remove a component or make a correction to your electronic circuit. To desolder a joint, you will need solder wick, which also known as desoldering braid. As step 1, place a piece of desoldering braid on the top of your joint or the solder you want to be removed. As a next step, heat your soldering iron and touch the tip to the bottom of the braid. This will heat the solder below, which will then be absorbed into the desoldering braid. You can now remove the braid to see the solder has been extracted and removed. Be carefully touching the braid when you are heating it because it will get hot. And this is not the technique we usually did in our laboratories. We prefer desoldering pump over the copper strip. So if you have a lot of solder you want to be removed, you may want to use a device called a solder sucker or a desoldering pump. This is a handheld mechanical vacuum that sucks up the hot solder when a press of button. To use, press the plunger down at the end of the solder sucker. Heat the joint with your soldering iron and place the tip of the solder sucker over the hot solder. Press the release button to suck up the liquid solder. In order to empty the solder sucker, press down on the plunger. then the melted solder get into the plunger, and then the components is solder free and we can easily remove it using a force strips or some other tools. Hope you understand the basic concepts of prototyping, soldering and desoldering. Always keep in mind that practice makes perfect, so when you do soldering, remember all these things you learned here. Thanks for watching. Subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.